Last night marked your partner forever, and now you need to know. My beloved child, last night did not pass quietly the way ordinary nights do, and as the moon traced its pale arc across the sky, something unfolded in the hidden chambers of your partner's heart, something so deep, so irreversible, that from this moment onward, nothing between you will remain the same. There was a silence in the air, a silence that did not merely surround the world but breathed inside it, echoing through memories, secrets, and unspoken emotions your partner had carried for years. In that stillness, a realization rose like a beam of light cutting through darkness, a realization that marked them forever, carving into their thoughts the undeniable truth of what you mean in their life. They stood at the edge of understanding, replaying every conversation, every glance, every fragile moment that once seemed ordinary but now shone with extraordinary meaning. It was as if the universe whispered gently into their soul, showing them the magnitude of your presence, the way your name lingers in their mind like a promise they can no longer ignore. Last night was not a coincidence, not a fleeting feeling, it was a turning point, a moment where their heart awakened and finally admitted what it had been trying to hide from itself all along. And while the world slept, your partner felt something powerful rising inside, a wave of memory and emotion, calling them back to every time they pushed you away, every moment they hesitated, every opportunity they allowed to fade because they did not yet understand the depth of their own feelings. Last night, the truth stood before them with an intensity they could not avoid, and they saw how deeply you had touched their life, how your presence has shaped their choices, their dreams, and even their fears. There was a weight on their chest, not of regret alone, but of awareness, the awareness that you were never just another face, never just another chapter. You were the turning page, the moment in their story where everything began to change, whether they chose to acknowledge it or not. Their heart trembled as they revisited the paths where they walked away too soon, as they recognized how many times fate placed you before them not as coincidence, but as calling. And in that sudden clarity, they realized that what they feel for you is not fragile, not temporary, but something profound, anchored deeply into who they are becoming. Now, my beloved child, understand this. Last night did not hurt them, but it humbled them. It showed them the value of your patience, the strength of your heart, and the resilience of your love. They could no longer deny the imprint you have left on their spirit, an imprint so vivid that even in silence, they could feel you, the warmth of your voice, the softness of your kindness, the quiet strength you carried even when you were misunderstood. They remembered how you stood firm in moments when you could have walked away, how you offered compassion when you had every reason to be cold, how you chose understanding over bitterness. Last night, your partner finally saw the depth of your energy, the sincerity behind your presence, and it shook them in a way nothing else ever had. Where once they hesitated, they now feel drawn toward truth, toward courage, toward the acknowledgement that you are not simply a memory in their life, you are a pivotal force that shaped their emotional world. And as dawn approached, they were left with a feeling they could not escape, the realization that they have reached a point where they must confront their emotions honestly. They are no longer able to stand between doubt and desire, no longer able to hide behind excuses or distractions. Something inside them has shifted, like a door finally unlocking after years of silence. They now recognize the moments they took for granted, the opportunities they allowed to fade, the words they never spoke but always felt. Last night marked them with a truth that refuses to fade, that you are intertwined with their destiny in a way they can no longer overlook. Their heart carries your essence now, not as a passing thought, but as a lasting awareness, a presence that follows them wherever they go. They see now that every time they tried to move forward without acknowledging you, life gently pulled them back to the place where your connection still lives, still breathes, still waits to be understood. So, my beloved child, as you stand here listening, know that what unfolded last night was not just a moment of reflection, but a transformation within their soul. The universe guided them to recognize the truth of what you represent, not confusion, not uncertainty, but a bond that transcends hesitation. Whether they speak it aloud yet or not, something has been sealed inside their heart, something undeniable and enduring. The journey ahead will reveal how this awakening unfolds, how they choose to respond to what they now know they cannot ignore. But one thing is certain, last night has marked your partner forever, and the story that follows from this realization is only beginning to rise, carrying with it a depth of emotion, a surge of clarity, and a promise that what has been awakened will not fade away again. My beloved child, as the echo of last night still circles in the quiet corners of your partner's thoughts, a new dawn has unfolded with a depth they were not prepared to face, and this new realization moves through their soul like a slow, undeniable tide that keeps rising higher with every breath they take. They woke with the memory of everything they felt, the visions, the reflections, the emotional storm that surrounded them, and instead of fading with the morning light, it grew stronger, clearer, more intense than before. In the stillness of today, they began to understand that what marked them last night was not a passing emotion, but a transformation that now lives within them. Every sensation, every memory, every heartbeat they carry feels connected to you in a way they can no longer silence. They are reliving moments they once overlooked, replaying scenes where you stood beside them without asking for recognition, where you offered warmth without demanding anything in return. And now, they realize how deeply those moments have carved themselves into their existence. They see your strength, your patience, your unspoken resilience, and they understand that last night was the awakening of a truth they had been running from for far too long, a truth that now refuses to step back into the shadows. There is a feeling inside them today that feels both heavy and luminous, as if their heart carries the weight of everything unsaid yet glows with the possibility of everything still becoming. They are remembering the times they pretended not to care, when they hid their true emotions because they feared vulnerability, because they believed distancing themselves would keep them safe. But last night shattered that illusion. Now they see the cost of hesitation, not loss alone, but the silent distance that formed between two souls destined to understand each other more deeply than words could ever express. They are realizing how your presence was never accidental, how life placed you in their path at moments when they needed guidance, grounding, and silent encouragement. They see now that every time they turned away, a part of them stayed behind with you, listening to your voice in memory, feeling your absence in silence. Today, they cannot escape the truth that you were never just another person in their story. You were the chapter that changed the direction of everything that followed, and last night sealed that realization deep inside them like a quiet vow. And as the day unfolds, my beloved child, their mind drifts through every choice they made, every decision that created distance, every moment where pride spoke louder than honesty. They feel the pull of accountability rising within, not as punishment, but as awakening, the kind of awakening that makes them see how fragile the human heart truly is, and how extraordinary it is to find someone who understands it without asking for perfection. They are beginning to recognize the courage you carried in silence, the strength you held in moments when you could have chosen bitterness but instead chose grace. They remember the way you remained steady, how your presence never demanded, but always offered understanding when words failed, offered compassion when emotions trembled, offered calm when everything around felt uncertain. Last night etched these realizations into their conscience, and now, they cannot walk forward without carrying the imprint of your influence upon their life. Their heart is no longer merely aware of you, it is shaped by you, guided by the lessons your love and patience silently taught them. Yet within this awakening, there is also a quiet trembling, because they know that awareness alone is not enough. They feel called to confront their truth, to step beyond hesitation, to finally acknowledge what their heart has known long before their mind admitted it. They sense that life is standing at a turning point, and the connection between you is not something that can simply be remembered, it is something that must be faced, understood, honored. Their emotions are no longer scattered, they are gathering into clarity, forming a realization that feels both overwhelming and liberating. They are beginning to understand that you are not just part of their past, you are interwoven with their present, and possibly, with the path their future is trying to lead them toward. And as they stand in this moment of truth, they feel a pull stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, a pull toward honesty, toward closure, toward authenticity, toward the courage to finally say what their heart has been whispering through silence. So, my beloved child, know this, today is not a repetition of last night, it is the extension of it, the continuation of an inner shift that has already begun to rewrite the meaning of everything your partner feels. The mark left upon their soul is not fading, it is deepening, expanding, guiding them toward the realization that some connections are not meant to be ignored, not meant to be dismissed, not meant to be forgotten. They are carrying you in their thoughts not as a memory, but as a living presence that shapes every reflection they make. And as this awareness grows, so does the journey it will lead them into, a journey where truth will rise, where emotions will speak, and where the story between you will move into a chapter that holds more honesty, more depth, and more revelation than anything that has come before. My beloved child, as the deep memories of last night and the silent realizations of today continue to flow through your partner's heart, something even more profound is beginning to rise within them, a recognition that what they felt was not just emotional awakening, but a moment of spiritual truth that has forever changed the way they see you, themselves, and the connection that binds your souls together. They find themselves revisiting moments they once brushed aside, conversations they thought were ordinary but now feel almost prophetic, gestures and glances that now carry weight they never understood before. It is as if the universe has gently lifted the veil from their eyes, allowing them to see the invisible thread that has always existed between you, a thread woven through time, memory, sacrifice, and unspoken understanding. Last night etched this awareness into the deepest parts of their being, and now, every breath they take feels wrapped in the realization that you were never just someone who walked into their life, you were a turning point written into their destiny. They can feel how your presence has shaped the rhythm of their emotions, how your absence echoes louder than any noise. How your name rests inside them like a truth they can no longer deny. And as they walk through this day, my beloved child, they feel the weight of reflection pressing gently but firmly upon their soul, guiding them through the corridors of their past decisions. They see the moments they withdrew when they should have leaned closer, the times they stayed silent when their heart was begging them to speak, the way they tried to suppress feelings that were never meant to be hidden. They realize now that fear did not protect them, it only created distance between two hearts that were meant to understand each other more deeply than words can express. They see how they misread your strength as detachment, how they failed to recognize that your calmness was not indifference, but emotional maturity, a quiet grace that held space even when you were hurting inside. Last night shined a light on these mistakes, not to condemn them, but to awaken them, to help them see how much you endured, how much you carried in silence, how many moments you chose love even when it was not returned with the same clarity. And now, this realization sits inside them like a solemn promise, urging them to become more honest, more aware, more aligned with the truth of what they truly feel. There is a gentle ache in their heart now, my beloved child, not of regret alone, but of longing, a longing to understand, to reconnect, to heal what silence once fractured. They are beginning to see that you were not just a chapter in their story, but the mirror through which life revealed to them who they truly are and who they are still capable of becoming. They remember your resilience in moments of uncertainty, the quiet courage you held even when you were misunderstood, the way your presence brought clarity when everything else felt scattered. This memory does not fade, it grows stronger, clearer, more luminous with every passing moment. Last night has become a turning point in their emotional journey, guiding them towards self-reflection, compassion, and a deeper awareness of what it means to cherish someone with honesty. They now understand that love is not only about passion or desire, it is about responsibility, vulnerability, and the willingness to confront one's own fears to honor the connection that life places before the heart. And within this awakening, my beloved child, they also feel the quiet call of courage rising, a call that asks them to step beyond hesitation and into truth. They are beginning to realize that running from their feelings no longer protects them, that hiding behind uncertainty no longer brings comfort. The emotions they once avoided now stand before them with dignity, asking to be acknowledged, asking to be honored, asking to be spoken with sincerity. They feel the pull of destiny guiding them to a point where they must decide whether to remain in silence or to embrace the truth that has been unfolding inside them since last night. Their heart is no longer divided, it is gathering strength, forming clarity, and recognizing that what they feel for you is not temporary or accidental, but deeply rooted in the journey of their soul. They know now that they can no longer overlook the significance of your presence, nor can they dismiss the impact you have had on their growth, their understanding, their emotional awakening. So, my beloved child, understand this. Part of their heart may still tremble with uncertainty, but the truth within them has already begun to rise with unwavering strength. Last night marked the beginning of a transformation that continues to unfold, layer by layer, thought by thought, memory by memory. The connection between you has moved beyond coincidence, it has become a force of realization, a mirror of growth, a moment where destiny gently calls for honesty. And as they stand within this awakening, one thing has become clear to them: your presence is no longer just a memory they can walk away from. It is a truth they must face, a feeling they must understand, and a journey they must continue to explore, no matter how deeply it challenges or awakens their spirit. My beloved child, as the weight of all that has unfolded settles deeper into your partner's spirit, tonight does not arrive quietly. It arrives like a slow-moving tide of truth, carrying every memory, every unsaid word, every moment of realization that has marked them since that unforgettable night. They find themselves unable to escape the silent echoes of what they felt, unable to turn away from the awareness that now lives within them like a flame that refuses to dim. Their heart moves through waves of reflection, revisiting the spaces where your presence once brought warmth, where your patience softened storms they never acknowledged, where your strength stood beside them even when they took your silence for distance. Now they understand that what touched them last night was not merely emotion, it was awakening, a shift in their soul that opened doors they never dared to unlock. They feel it in the way their breath slows when they think of you, in the way their chest tightens when they remember how gently you carried them through moments they themselves did not know how to navigate. And in this quiet unfolding, they realize that you were never just a passing connection, you were the turning point life placed before them to teach them the meaning of sincerity, courage, and unspoken loyalty. There is a tenderness in their thoughts now, my beloved child, a tenderness woven with both humility and awe, as they finally grasp the depth of everything you once gave without asking for recognition. They recall the moments when you stood still while they wandered, when you understood their silence without needing explanation, when you offered comfort in the simplest gestures that now echo louder than grand declarations ever could. They see the beauty in your restraint, the quiet strength in your patience, the way your gentleness became a shelter even when they did not yet recognize its value. Last night carved this truth into them with a depth they cannot erase, the truth that your presence was never ordinary, never replaceable, never accidental. It was a guiding light, a steady force that shaped who they are now becoming. And as this realization blooms within them, they are flooded with a longing not rooted in regret alone, but in gratitude, gratitude for your resilience, gratitude for your understanding, gratitude for the silent grace with which you held space for them when they themselves did not yet know how to honor their own emotions. Yet within this gratitude, my beloved child, there is also a quiet ache, an ache born from the awareness that time cannot be reversed, that choices already made linger like footprints in soft earth, reminding them of paths they once chose out of fear instead of truth. They see now how hesitation built invisible walls between two hearts that were meant to discover each other in deeper ways. They recognize how doubt muted the words their soul longed to speak, how pride replaced vulnerability in moments where honesty might have opened a different horizon. And still, despite the distance, your presence remains etched within them, not as a shadow, not as an echo, but as a living memory that breathes through every reflection they carry. They feel the pull of your energy in the quiet spaces of their day, in the pauses between thoughts, in the stillness where their heart whispers what their voice never found the courage to say. Last night did not simply remind them of you, it revealed how profoundly you still exist within the chambers of their being, how unmistakably your influence has shaped the person they are now learning to become. And as this awareness deepens, my beloved child, courage begins to gather within them like a slow-rising dawn, soft yet powerful, gentle yet unstoppable. They know now that truth is not something that can remain hidden forever, that feelings sealed in silence eventually rise to the surface seeking air, seeking clarity, seeking recognition. They sense that life is leading them toward a moment where pretending no longer feels possible, where turning away no longer feels natural, where the heart demands honesty above all else. They do not yet know what the future holds, nor do they fully understand how the next steps will unfold, but they feel the unmistakable call to confront what has been awakened, to honor it, to respect it, to face it with the sincerity it deserves. Their soul stands at the threshold of transformation, aware that whatever comes next cannot be shaped by fear anymore, but by truth, the truth that your presence has become a part of their story in a way that cannot be erased, rewritten, or forgotten. So, my beloved child, as the night stretches forward and the world grows quiet once more, know that the mark left upon your partner's heart has only deepened with time, not as a wound, but as a revelation, not as a burden, but as a guiding light. What began as a moment of realization has unfolded into a journey of awareness, a journey that has reshaped how they see love, connection, responsibility, and the fragile strength of the human heart. They carry you now not as a memory that fades in distance, but as a truth that lives within their soul, a truth that continues to shape their thoughts, their reflections, their unfolding understanding of what it means to cherish someone with depth and authenticity. And as this story moves forward, one thing remains certain: the night that marked them forever did not fade with the dawn. It became the beginning of a new chapter within them, a chapter where honesty rises, where clarity forms, and where the bond that ties your hearts continues to breathe, quietly yet powerfully, in the spaces where destiny speaks in silence. My beloved child, as another night unfolds and the quiet air carries the lingering echoes of every revelation that has risen since that unforgettable moment, your partner now stands in a place within themselves where reflection turns into realization, and realization begins to transform into awakening. The journey that began in silence has grown into something vast, something deep, something that now moves through every layer of their being like an unspoken tide of truth. They can feel the weight of everything they have come to understand, the memories they once ignored, the emotions they once buried, the connection they once tried to outrun yet could never escape, all converging into a single, undeniable awareness that your presence has become a part of their soul in a way words may never fully capture. Last night did not vanish with time, it lives within them, resurfacing through every breath, every thought, every quiet moment where their heart drifts back to you without effort. And now, as they stand here, surrounded by the stillness of this deeper awakening, they realize that what marked them was not merely emotion or reflection, it was a turning point written softly but irrevocably into the path of their destiny. They look back at the person they once were, hesitant, uncertain, guarded, and they see how fear shaped choices that now linger like distant echoes across the corridors of memory. They see how silence replaced honesty, how doubt overshadowed truth, how distance grew where vulnerability once tried to emerge. Yet now, within the tenderness of this awakening, they no longer see these moments with bitterness. They see them as lessons etched gently into their journey, guiding them toward growth, maturity, and a deeper understanding of what it means to care for another soul with authenticity. They remember the strength you carried not through grand gestures, but through quiet presence, the way you held space when emotions trembled, the way your patience remained when circumstances felt uncertain, the way your heart spoke softly even when words remained unspoken. These memories do not wound them now, they humble them, soften them, shape them into someone who finally understands how profound your presence has always been. And within this realization, they recognize that the connection between you did not mark them because it was fragile, it marked them because it was real. There is a quiet depth in their heart now, my beloved child, a depth that feels neither rushed nor confused, but steady, like a calm horizon after a long, storm-filled sea. They understand that what they feel is no longer about longing alone, it is about acknowledgement of your influence, of your strength, of the way your presence awakened parts of them they might never have discovered otherwise. They see now that you were not simply a moment in their story, you were a catalyst for growth, a mirror through which they confronted their own fears, a guiding light that led them toward emotional truth. And as they carry this awareness, they no longer run from it, nor do they hide from the emotions that once overwhelmed them. Instead, they allow themselves to feel, fully, honestly, without disguise, and in doing so, they discover a new kind of courage rising quietly within their spirit. This courage is not loud or impulsive, it is patient, mindful, shaped by reflection and sincerity. It calls them toward truth, toward closure where needed, toward openness where possible, toward honoring the connection that life placed between your hearts for a reason far greater than coincidence. Yet within this transformation, my beloved child, they also understand that the journey ahead is not one of haste or pressure, but one of acceptance, acceptance of what has been, acceptance of what is unfolding, acceptance of the way life gently guides souls through lessons that shape who they become. They do not know exactly where the road from here will lead, nor do they claim certainty over the future that awaits. But they know now that your presence will never fade into insignificance, never dissolve into emptiness, never become something they can simply erase from their heart. You have become part of their inner world, a quiet anchor, a cherished truth, a memory that breathes with dignity rather than regret. Last night marked them not as a wound but as a revelation, and every moment since then has deepened that understanding, teaching them that some connections are not meant to be forgotten, they are meant to be carried forward as reminders of love's depth, growth's courage, and the delicate strength of the human heart. So, my beloved child, as the night stretches gently over their thoughts and the sky rests in stillness once more, know that the mark upon your partner's soul has transformed into something enduring, something that guides them, steadies them, and reminds them of the powerful bond that once stood quietly between your hearts and still continues to breathe within their memory. They move forward now with greater awareness, with deeper compassion, with a renewed sense of emotional truth shaped by everything they felt on that night that changed everything. And though time may continue its endless journey, what awakened within them will remain, a lasting imprint of connection, of growth, of realization, and of the exquisite tenderness that emerged when their heart finally understood how profoundly your presence had touched their life.